This
the button.
conference will now be recorded.
We'll be looking at the button. So whenever I'm talking about a button, generally what is a button? Generally, what is a button? How you create a button in HTML? In HTML, how you create a button? Okay, so button. Yeah. So I'll just on this table now. You want to give the container MT3. So what is the meaning of this container MT3? So it will give you a kind of storage area, So what is that? MT3. MT means the top margin. Top margin. I think you have idea about margins, paddings, all that things you have idea. Yes or no? Okay. Now how you create a button over how you create a button over here. Okay. So here you generally in HTML how you create a button. So button on click is equal to all that you do, no? Yes, that is basically on click and all. But now here in Bootstrap, what are we going to see? In Bootstrap, we are going to see how we can create various types of buttons. Various types of buttons, colors you say, styles you say, okay, all that kind of buttons, transparent buttons, so many things we are going to work with. Okay, so all those things we are going to look at. Okay, so now we go here. So as always, I'll give you the code. You can just understand here. So yesterday primary, remember primary, secondary. So I told you. So that will be behind you basically. Okay. So now if you observe here, how can I create the button? How can I create the bootstrap button? So table, how you created table? Table class. Compulsory one class will be there. What is the class? Table. So in the similar way, you can create a button by the help of class BTN. By the help of which class? BTN. This is the class now. The class BTN class. So how you can create a basic button? Basic button you can use which one? BTN. So BTN. So how you are going to create now? Div class is equal to container empty3 that we know. Button type is equal to button and class is equal to what? BTN. What it gives you? It gives you a basic button. It gives you a basic button. And in the same way, you use primary, secondary, that things will be there for you. So table primary. Table primary means you will get one column. Now you are using BTN primary. BTN primary means you will get a primary button. What is the color of the primary button here? The primary color button is blue color. Okay, secondary is kind of dark gray. Yes, so success green, info. So same color combinations. Okay, what are the buttons that you have? Okay, how can I create a button now? So without saying try to create button. Type is equal to what do you say? Type is equal to button class. So what is the minimum class that I can select? BTN. What is the minimum class that I can select? BTN. So this is a basic button. This is a basic button. Okay, so how the basic button is created now? The basic button is created. Okay, so basic button. So it does not have any kind of styles. So it's a basic. Okay, now if I want to make a primary button, now tell me what is the change I can do here? Type is equal to button, class is equal to what I will say? BTN space, BTN primary. Understanding my point? So BTN space, BTN primary. So what happens here? What happens here? Which button gets created? Which button gets created? Primary button gets created. Created or not? Primary button inside color will be white and the button color will be black. So now it's your responsibility to create all types of buttons. All types of buttons. So make it very fast. But copy paste as I did, you can do this. Finished? Do all the things like link script already it is done. So you are just working with the buttons. Over. Okay. So what is the latest version of Bootstrap? 5.3.3. Okay, you can say simply 5 also, no problem. Okay. So now this is the way that you can create the buttons. Okay. So generally, whenever we are trying to look for buttons or anything, so we can add a button. Okay, so we can add a button. Okay, to something like a tag and even input tag also. Okay, so we can add a button for a tag also. We can add a button for input also. Button for button, okay, normal. But a tag, what is a tag actually? Anchor tag. A tag is what? Anchor tag. So now I want some button to be clicked so that the anchor tag may work. So for input also I want some anchor tag. I mean for the input also I want some button. So what I can do? You need to just add the class. That's you need to just add the class. Now you see here ahref okay is equal to hash. Hash means any link. You can give any link. Something like that. Okay. So btn success. You are giving link button. Success means which color? It's obviously a green color. Okay. For all of them, I am given success only. So now button type is equal to button. This you already. Now input type is equal to button for what? For an input also you are using. For input also you are using which type? Button type. For input also you are using which type? Button type. Okay, so button means whenever somebody is clicking on that button, okay, so it should give the input possibility. It should give what? Input possibility. Okay, so that is what we are trying to know. Okay, what all things we can have? What all things we can have for a button? We can have a tag, we can have input tag, and we can have the button tag already. We know. Yes, sir. Okay, create it first. If you want to give any link, you can give like www.facebook.com, something like that. Then now we are invoking the button. If somebody asks you this, what will be your answer? We are invoking the button using Bootstrap. What should be your answer? Hmm? What should be your answer? How you put a button in your Bootstrap? Somebody questions you. What should be your answer? Your answer should be with the help of the class BTN. With the help of the class BTN. Yes. So class BTN is important, right? Yes or no? So this is something like Ramayana is in the middle and you don't know who is Rama. Okay, class is equal to BTN. So this class is responsible for providing the button. So all the other things are like additional properties, success button, primary button. Okay, so all those are additional properties. Okay, fine. So next we will talk about the outline buttons. What we are going to talk about now? Outline buttons. So what are outline buttons are here? Now, what are the properties that we are using for outline buttons? Okay, you can see simple BTN in the middle. What you have put? You have put something like outline, something like outline. Yes, okay. Now, the main thing over here we need to understand is okay. I'll give you outline. Okay, outline. I'll show just you can develop. Okay. So over on me. Okay. So now let me say this. Now, right. So now what happened? What is happening? Now what is happening? What is happening on the button? Tell me. When you take the mouse on it, when you hover the mouse on it, the button is becoming a primary button. The button is becoming a primary button. So you gave outline first. Structure is outline. And once you took your mouse over onto it, it is giving you the primary style. It is giving you the primary style. Understanding my point? So this is outline button for you. This is outline button. Sir, can I have only outline like without primary? Is there any other way? So hovering should not happen. Something like that. Do we have? Okay. So now if I say like that, now tell me what is happening. Hovering property is coming to it, but only which property is coming? Only which property is coming? Only what do you call transparent button kind of thing is only coming. What is coming? Transparent, or you can say outline, or you can say outline. When you are hovering and clicking on it, then only you are getting that outline. So that too when you click, not only hover, you are going and clicking on it. At that time only you are getting the outline, but no use, no. So that is why we are using something like primary. So there is no use on that button. So no one knows that it is button also. Okay. So that is why we are using this option. Okay. So we are using this option. What is the option necessary? BTN outline primary. Understanding the difference. Yes. Understanding the difference is very, very important. Okay. You hover on it and keep the button being filled. Okay. Right. So now I'll show you the code as always. So you create it. Once you understand one thing, all the other things will be easy. Okay. But anyhow, for your practice, I've given you. And the last one, if you see, we said button outline is light, and we have added one more property. What is the property? Text dark. Text dark. So text dark means the text should be dark. It should be dark. So that's the property I added. That's it. Okay, create it very fast. Finished? You are getting the effects or not? So what you are seeing in hover effect. Okay. So right now, next important thing is the sizes of the button. See, sometimes you require big buttons, sometimes you require small buttons, sometimes you require medium sized buttons. Okay. If you want to get large buttons, you can use BTN LG. BTN LG. So what you're using here? You are using BTN LG. LG for large. LG for large. Okay. So if you want medium, MD. If you want small, SM. So if you want a primary large, success large, it's up to you. It's up to you. Whatever you want, you can. Okay. So primary, secondary, info, any kind of button, and including the sizes, including the sizes. So what is the size of this large now? It is larger. It is larger. So default is like normal button. If you don't give any size, automatically it will be which style? It will be MD style. It will be MD. MD means medium style. And SM is small. Okay. Right. Done. Just add that lines. That's it. BTN LG, BTN MD. Don't do everything once again. Done. Okay. So next we will talk about the block level buttons. So block level buttons. So whenever you are talking about the block level buttons, so generally we use an option called block. We use an option called block. Okay, so BTN block. What is the option that we are using? We are using something like BTN block. So what it will give is, it will give the button in full width of the page. Give the button in full width of the page. So what I'm trying to say here is, I will use something like, okay. So I'll say button primary, and what I will be using here, I will be using something like button. What I'll be using here, button uh, button block. Okay, so button block. So button block, right? So button block. So what, something like button. Okay, so save this. Now you run this. Okay, so we did some. Yeah, div class we did not change, no? So class we need to say dgrid. Dgrid means the grid of the division. Dgrid means the grid of the division. So you need to change this. So you need to say dgrid. Okay, so dgrid, the division grid. So generally, like container, we have a grid option. We have a grid option. So in that whole grid, I want that button to be in full width. Okay, like this. So it is now of full width or not? Yes. So what you have to change here? One more thing you have to change is, you have to change the class. The class you need to say dgrid, the division grid basically. Okay. So the division grid, so it will take the whole area. Take the whole area of that particular page. Okay. Right. Of course, in that container only. So it will not take any other container or anything. It will take in that container only. Okay. Right. So that is what you are changing. Okay. Now, suppose if you want gaps, if you want gaps in between, okay. So if you want gaps in between, for example, I want like three gaps, okay. So this star means the number of gaps, okay. Star means the number of gaps. I want three buttons. I want a gap of three. I want a gap of three. So what I will do, I will simply say D grid. I want gaps now. I want gaps. Okay. So now, for example, okay. So I will copy this. Okay. And I will say something like one, something like two, and something like three. Okay. Now let's run this. Now tell me, is there any gap? No. Why? Because we did not provide the gap. Three buttons are different. So how can I understand that three buttons are different? If you see the edges here, and when I'm taking the mouse onto it, so there are these are three different buttons, but you are not looking at the difference. You're not looking at the difference. So what I will say here is, I will say gap three. I'll say gap three. So if I say gap three, what will happen? Automatically, the gap by 3 pixel kind of. Okay. The gap comes 3 pixel between each of the button. Between each of the button. So top one you don't get. So one, two, and three kind. Okay. So in that way you are looking at it. Right? Yes. Below the button there will be a space. There will be a space. Okay. With which option you got that? Gap 3. D grid gap 3. Got it clear? Yes or no? Okay. So how you got the button block? By using BTN block. How you got that gap? By using gap 3. Yeah, do it. I just put it like this. Done. Okay. Okay. So now we can enable and disable the buttons. Okay. So now, after all, like we created active buttons, which are enabled buttons. Now, what we can do is, so we can create some disabled buttons. Disabled buttons in the sense, if you go and click them also, you will not have any activity going on. Will not have any activity going on. So we will create disabled button. We'll create disabled button. Okay. So do you remember disabled attributes in inputs? Don't remember? Okay. Let me just give you an idea of that. Okay. So now let me create an input button. First HTML, then we'll understand the other things. So input type is equal to button. Input type is equal to button. Okay. So input type is equal to button. Now this button I will give some name. Okay. Active button. Okay. Active button, something like this. And I will say, uh, okay, input no. So input means I need to give something, right? So I will say value is equal to active button. Yes, value is equal to active button. Now I will say in type is equal to something like inactive button. Okay, how can I make this inactive? Just by adding disabled. This is like attribute, like a attribute. Yes. So attribute for making that button disabled. For making that button disabled. Yes or no? Okay. So let me run this. Now what happened here? the button became inactive. Yes or no? The button became inactive. So this is active and this is inactive. This is normal HTML. Normal HTML. Now, when coming to the Bootstrap, what we are doing? Okay, now if you observe here, first button is primary button, no problem. Second button is again primary button, but this time it is active. This time it is active. And here the fourth one, if you observe, we have button primary disabled. Button primary disabled. So this is general HTML. This is general HTML, and this is Bootstrap HTML. Bootstrap HTML. Bootstrap button rather, I should say. Bootstrap button. So Bootstrap button, which is in which state? Disabled state. Which state? Disabled state. Understanding my points? Yes or no? So now let us create a button, rather a Bootstrap button we will create, which will be disabled. Now tell me, how can I create it? Input, same thing I can do. Input type is equal to input type is equal to button. Okay. Now what I can add here? I can add class. I can add class. Class, what class? BTN, the button class. Okay. And I want some button to be secondary. Okay. So button secondary. Then I want it to be disabled. I want it to be disabled. Okay. Right. I want it to be disabled. And obviously I need to give the values. Value is equal to disabled button. Disabled button. I can give in this. So same thing. Now this is also disabled. See, this is also disabled. This is also disabled. But what is the difference between inactive button and the disabled button? What about inactive button? It's a normal input type is equal to button, which is HTML wise inactive. But what about this disabled button? It is bootstrap wise deactive. It is bootstrap wise deactive. Yes or no? What I did? Did I do any big things? No. Simply what I said, I attached a class. I attached a class. Which class? Bootstrap class. Attached which class? Bootstrap class. So bootstrap class I attached. I said, hey, you are a button. You are a button and you are a secondary button also. You are a button. Who is saying you are a button? BTN is saying. And we are also saying, hey boss, you are also a secondary button. You are also a secondary button and you are in disabled state. You are in which state? Disabled state. Am I clear? Yes or no? Okay. Value disabled button, the name of that thing that you. So in this way, we can create the buttons. Inactive, I mean active and inactive buttons, or you can say active and disabled buttons. Am I clear? Clear or not? Okay. Next, we will talk about the spinner buttons. We talk about which buttons? Spinner buttons. So up to now, more or less, we have seen some kind of buttons and all this. But now, if you observe, we are going to add spinners. We are going to add spinners. So this is like spinner. This is like spinner. Okay. So spinner. So how can I add that? Okay. Now, first we will create a button. Okay. So now going back to container MT3. Now, first button. How is the first button created? Let's check. How is the first button created? So, button class is equal to button primary. And inside, if you observe, we gave a span class. Gave a span class, spinner border medium. We did not give any name. We did not give any name. Okay, so what we gave here? Okay, let me just decrease the image so that we can. Okay. So now what you observe here, first button is having what? spinner border. Okay, spinner border SM. So it's a small spinner. It's a small spinner. Okay, then spinner border SM. But what is the text inside? Loading. What is the text inside? Loading. So where you are writing the text for the button. You are writing the text for the button. Okay, same thing. Primary button. Okay. So we said border. Okay, so primary. And we said spinner border. Okay. And we said spinner grow. Spinner grow. Grow in the sense, so we are asking it to be a full circle kind of. Be a full circle kind of thing. And what is the difference between this button and this button? One is disabled button and one is enabled button. One is disabled button and one is enabled button. Okay, I want you to work out with this later. Okay, because you can easily understand that. Now, this is called as a button group. What is this? Button group. So we are aligning the buttons as a group. Aligning the buttons as a group. So now you just think of the pages you already worked with. Okay, so you just think of the pages you already worked with. So whenever you work with the pages or something, there you will be finding these buttons. So almost all these kind of buttons you have already seen in pages, in web pages. Yes or no? Yes, at that time you don't know what is this and all. But now you know it. It is a bootstrap button. What button it is? Bootstrap button. Like in Facebook you see, in YouTube you see, in Instagram. If you open a web environment mainly. Okay. So you will see these kind of buttons. You'll see this kind of button. Yes or no? Have you seen them or not? Okay. Now we are creating a button group. What we are creating, sir? We are creating a button group. So where we are creating a button group, we are creating a button inside the container. Inside the container. So button group we are creating inside the container. What are three buttons that we are creating as a group? Apple, Samsung, and Sony. What are three? Apple, Samsung, and Sony. Okay, so how we are creating that group? Okay, so now for example, I want to create uh, okay, something like, so this is container MT3. So container MT3. Container MT3. Okay. Now inside this, what I want. So inside this, I want to have what? Button group. What I want here? Div class is equal to button group. Button group. Okay. So button group. Then inside this, I want buttons. I want buttons. So button class is equal to btn. Okay. Space btn primary. Btn primary. Okay. So next. Next we will have okay. So we'll have something like Java. Okay. Next. So we will have something like warning. Okay, so warning Python. Okay, so primary. So okay, so we will say button something like danger. Okay, something like danger. Okay, right. So now what we have created here, we said, hey boss, you form a button group. You form a button group. Getting my point? Yes. So what I'm forming here? I'm forming a button group. I'm forming a button group. Okay. So what is the thing that we need to do here? We need to write this 13th line. What is the 13th line saying? Button group. Okay. Right. So then we will talk about Okay, so we will talk about, one second. No. Okay, so now what you are looking at here, you are looking at vertical, no? So previously it was what? Previously it was horizontal. Now it is vertical. So what is the change that I have done? What is the change that you see? Change in the code. Code change is important for us. Look change, anyhow it will happen. What is that we have done? We said button group vertical. Button group vertical. That's a major change that we have done. So what I've done here? Button group vertical. Button group vertical. So simply you can change it like this. Yes. Okay, simple, no? Very, very simple. Once you understand, very, very simple. But lot of things to remember. So that's not the only thing. Okay, side by side. So if you want side by side also, you can have two divisions. You can have two divisions. So, okay, other things I'll give you as a homework. You can just do it later. Okay, so this is important. So this is important. So what is this basically? This is, now if you observe here. Okay. Now what you observe, you tell me. So Apple, Samsung, and Sony. So what Sony has, again, two options. What Sony has here? Two options. So it's like a drop down menu. It's like a drop down menu. Yes or no? So now if you observe button group, under button group, what we have? Button, primary button Apple, primary button Samsung. That two are okay. Now if you have senior button group, and again you are creating a button called Sony, which will have drop down toggle. Drop down toggle. What is the option there? Drop down toggle. Drop down toggle. So drop down toggle in the sense this one. Okay, what is the option here? Drop down toggle. Okay, so and we are also defining the type. So data button style toggle is equal to, so this is like data button style toggle is equal to drop down, is equal to drop down. So, and now we need to create a list. We need to create a list. Okay, so that to unordered list, that to unordered list. So when you create an unordered list, what will happen? If you click on Sony, you will get the two options also. You will get that two options also, like a menu bar, like a menu bar. So like a menu bar, if you click, you get the other options. No, so like that, you are creating which ones here? You are creating a drop down menu. You are creating a drop down menu. Okay, so you can just try it. Okay, and we will talk about pagination in our next session. That is the next topic. Okay, so I thought I would cover, but time is not sufficient now. So this is all about the button. Pagination means like you have some information, something like next Tuesday, like this. This is called pagination. Okay, so next 1, 2, 3. So how you can create all that, we will see in our next session. So like reading some content, you will see that, no, reading some content, at the time of reading content and all, you will see that pagination concept. Okay, so that concept we will see in our next session. Okay, so buttons, what kind of buttons? Just given summary of this class, what all we have done? We have created buttons. Okay, what is the class that we use for buttons? BTN. BTN. Container MT3 is common. Okay, BTN we have used. BTN is applied along with primary, secondary, warning, info, etc., etc. Okay. Now then we saw button groups. We saw button groups and we saw drop down buttons. We saw drop down buttons. So why I'm trying to recollect them? Because when somebody is asking you talk about buttons in Bootstrap. So you need to say all these things. Simple. Yes. So they will not ask you to create buttons and all. Okay. So they will not ask you. So they'll just ask you what are the button things that you know in Bootstrap. So then you need to tell them all this. Okay. So go home, do practice once again. So try to keep your code aside and try to do it. It will be easy. Yes. Or else you write down once everything. Okay. In your laptop, you prepare once. And after 1 or 2 days, again go back, again do practice without C. So that will be a good practice basically. Yes. Getting my point? Don't writing means not in a piece of paper and all. I don't encourage that. Okay, this is not program. Programming means I'll encourage you to write on a piece of paper. But here this is not that program. Okay. So try to do it practically as long as possible. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So we'll meet tomorrow with pagination and the other concepts. Okay. Thank you.